Welcome again to another question from the Old Testament. Our question we are going to consider today is from the Old Testament prophet Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 53, where the question is asked, "And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed?" To give our question context, we'll be reading Isaiah chapter 53, verses 1 through 12. Who has believed what he has heard from us? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him like a young plant, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and as one from whom men hide their faces. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace. And with his wounds we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way. And the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shears is silent, so he opened not his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people? And they made his grave with the wicked, and with the rich man in his death, although he had done no violence, and there was no deceit in his mouth. Yet it was the will of the Lord to crush him. He has put him to grief. When his soul makes an offering for guilt, he shall see his offspring. He shall prolong his days. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his land. Out of the anguish of his soul he shall see and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore I will divide him a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death, and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sin of many, and makes intercession for the transgressors. I think the whole procedural aspect of the legal trial is fascinating. I especially like the opening arguments by both sides, the prosecution and the defense. The prosecution presents its case, and I'm inclined to believe the case they have made and think to myself, now, this guy or girl is toast, as our modern lingo might say. Then I hear the defense and change my mind. It goes to show what Solomon said in Proverbs 18:17. The one who states his case first seems right till the other comes and examines him. There are many times when I am partial, and no matter what the other side may say, I'm inclined to stick with my beliefs. Case in point, I'm rather partial to certain baseball players and have my reasons for believing they are the greatest who ever played at their position. When someone comes and makes a case for their choice, they may throw out a lot of facts and figures and stats and such, but I'm sticking to my choice no matter what. It's kind of selfish and narrow-minded, I know, but what can I say? I'm funny that way. I have read the 53rd chapter of Isaiah I don't know how many times. And you know, I've not yet settled in my mind completely the argument being made here in the first verse. I rather thought that it was fairly straightforward question at first, but now I'm puzzled by it. I begin to ask the questions a good reporter would ask. Who's asking? Who's being asked? What are they really asking? And why are they asking this question? When are they asking it? How would I read this passage 700 years before Christ? Maybe it's not that difficult. Maybe it's more difficult than I think. What do you think? But I'm not going to give myself a pass on this one. I want to know. This may be one of those can't see the forest for the trees situations. Fortunately, I and we can step back and see the big picture with the help of a couple of scholars. And I'm not talking about C.S. Lewis or Martin Luther or some other modern thinker. I'm speaking of the great teacher, Jesus Christ himself. For in his ministry, he quotes this passage and gives us the context of it. Here it is from John chapter 12, verses 37 through 39. Though he had done so many signs before them, they still did not believe in him, so that the word spoken by the prophet Isaiah might be fulfilled. Lord, who has believed what he heard from us? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Therefore they could not believe. Jesus then tells us something even more amazing in verse 41 of chapter 12. Isaiah said these things because he saw his glory and spoke of him. Peter says the same thing essentially in his letter in 1 Peter chapter 1 verses 10 and 11. Concerning this salvation, the prophets who prophesied about the grace that was to be yours searched and inquired carefully, inquiring what person or time the Spirit of Christ in them was indicating when he predicted the sufferings of Christ and the subsequent glories. Then Paul gives us a clearer view yet again in Romans 10:16. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah says, Lord, who has believed what he has heard from us? When I weave these together, I see the tapestry that God has set before me to contemplate. It is obvious in these verses that shine light on Isaiah's prophecy that few of those who ought to have been anticipating the coming Messiah simply did not believe this humble servant who came to save the world. Their minds were set on royalty and pomp, and they missed the common man with no outward sign of distinction. They and we were and are like Samuel, who looked for the outward garnishing to reveal a future king and failed to look deeper. The arm or the strength of the Lord was revealed in humility and meekness, not pomp and majesty. The poor, mournful, and meek recognized one of their own. I ask the same question at times when the call goes out for sinners to repent and come to Jesus. Who has believed the message? And Lord willing, let's meet here again tomorrow and look at another question from the Old Testament.